Boxing King Media powered by BYD. Gareth A. Davies. It's Monday morning and it's our usual weekend review. We should probably name this something. In fact, no, we should keep it natural, just keep it as it is. How you doing, Gareth?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well indeed. I've done my rowing this morning. I missed my swimming session, but I've been rowing this morning. So, what did I row? 2 miles I rowed. So, quite happy with that. Busy day ahead. Monday's normally a day off for me, but busy day ahead with some big interviews tonight, which I won't reveal yet. But yeah, very well, thank you. Nice to see you.
Good stuff, mate. Well, we'll jump straight into it because I know you're a busy man, and I can't let your fans and your haters down by asking you this stuff in the comments. And we always get some quirky ones, some that are too hardcore to read out. To be fair, um, so I've got a few from the recent one, Gareth. So I can't say this person's username because I don't know how to pronounce it, but it says Gad is living proof that if you give someone a chance, you can dislike them a little less over time.
Well, that's very kind. Very nice. Nice to know that you're growing on someone, or they at least have the diminishing returns of their dislike for you. I didn't. That's a very kind thing to say on this morning.
Yeah, well, I thought I'd start with one of the nicer ones first. Yeah,
Very kind of you, Boxing King Media.
no problem, mate. So the next one, uh, Gareth is the kind of guy that knowingly buys a haunted house just for the hell of it.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that one. That is the best question ever, and that is so true.
Yeah.
Love a bit of haunted house. Yeah, I live in a haunted stable anyway, so yeah.
All right. So did you buy that house that you live in because it's haunted?
No, I bought it for the land originally, I think, and the fact there were outbuildings, but was always going to be haunted out here in the countryside. Love a
Gareth,
bit of haunting.
you've just said Gareth lives in a house with loads of outbuildings. That's just going to spark off a whole bunch of questions. What's in these outbuildings?
Well, they're just dwellings. I've got they're dwellings, so they're all haunted, of course.
Okay. I just dread to imagine what's going to be on the next one now that they know you've got outbuildings, Gareth. I apologize in advance. Gareth in a gang, please stop talking. Sorry, please stop. You're killing me. I'm desperate to know what this gang was called. I think you said that you was in a gang last time and they want to know what this gang was called.
I said we've all been in gangs when we were younger or encouraged into gangs. That shall remain a secret. That shall remain. That will come out in my autobiography eventually.
Oh, fascinating, fascinating. So you're a proper man of mystery. Northern Ant, I can't remember what I read out from him last time, but
Oh, he no, he was. I remember Northern Ant. He was saying,
there's something about hating you or something. I can't remember, but he's reworded it or something. He goes,
okay, go on then.
me again. I need to reword that now. I can't watch his interviews and hate him as I am watching this one. I think it's that he annoys me, but I guess if I'm watching his interviews, maybe it's annoying in a good way. Please readdress this. I don't want Garrett staying up thinking Northern Ant is a hater.
Do you know I haven't slept since you read that question out? Northern Ant, you're right. I've not had a wink of sleep. I've
Okay,
not slept a wink. It's worried me deeply, and I appreciate you rewording it. And I will now be able to sleep in peace.
great. Slim Jim Dyke says, I'm starting a new business on increasing pain threshold. It's based on listening to the Gareth A. Davis's 30 years body of work because that will be effing painful.
Well, it would take a lot of time to get through all that work, but I appreciate the hate, but there's probably some love in there somewhere. Um, but at least he made a comment.
Aberdeen Andy's back and he says, thank you for asking the question last time. Though Garrett's answers were predictably dismissive. Next time, can you ask him why nobody is asking Joe Cordina for his side of the story? I've got no idea what that's about. I did ask him to send me a DM for some context, but he hasn't done. But
Was that when Cordina didn't make weight against Kakachi then? Or
I
oh no
think
no,
the
oh Cordina was injured, wasn't he? He didn't fight. Or Shakur was injured.
Mm. Is there something going on with the promotion or something that we don't know about?
Not sure. Not sure.
Okay.
Not sure.
But yeah, that was it, Gareth, for this week. And
Oh,
I think,
very interesting questions. Very deep.
yeah, I think you're in for some big ones next time. Let's jump into it. I'm going to start with Campbell Hatton. That was like the biggest talking point in the sense of obviously that did the biggest numbers on our social channels. You know,
Yeah.
because of how Eddie Hearn was like so brutal in the post-fight presser. But the rematch, I want to ask you, should he have taken that rematch straight away, where he's just joined Ben Davison's gym after his first loss, and they've jumped straight into a Jimmy Floyd Flint rematch? Should they have done that?
Well, I mean, in terms of the result and the fact that he was caught again and again and again, and he was a clear loser in the fight. At least 6 rounds before it was a 10 rounder, wasn't it? Um, you can't disrespect the fact that he is fearless as a young fighter, and he carries that DNA of his father, the brilliant hitman Hatton, whose career I covered in massive detail. But there's a lot of pressure on him. Co-main event, you and I have talked about this off air. Co-main event at the Co-op Live Arena, which is the home of Man City in many ways, isn't it? Where his father is a big figure. There have been a lot of people in there that know him, that are fans of his. Obviously, the Chorley guy, Jack Catterall, was commanding the main stage. But I think there's a lot of pressure on him he's still a very young man. He's very early in his career. There's no extensive amateur pedigree. Um, he's not the physical presence his father was as a fighter. And I think they've got to be a little bit careful with him. I say there's a lot of pressure on him, and I think he's very ambitious. I don't think it's going to be a long career, in my view. Um, and maybe they're shortening it by putting him in these difficult fights too early. I'm not trying to be too critical of him, but that's the way I see it right now.
Okay, that's so when you say they're trying to make it shorten his career, what do you mean? Like just chucking
No,
it
I
in?
don't think they're trying to shorten his career, but you know, he hasn't had a big build, has he? Um, they're very ambitious for him. I don't think it will be a long career. Um, I think he's going to struggle to get to European and world level. Struggle is maybe not the right word, but I think he's got that vaulting ambition in him that comes from his father. He's carrying the name, which is pressure. And he's got a style that is like Ricky's, but perhaps doesn't suit his physique. Um, and I think though the combination of those things will mean that it won't be a long career.
Eddie Hearn said he's not progressing and his performance wasn't much better than the first fight.
I think he's right. I think he's right. I think he's hit the nail on the head there. So as I say, they just have to be careful what they do with him because everybody's watching him. He can't have a quiet 8 or 10 rounder on the undercard because it's Ricky Hatton's son. It's young Campbell Hatton who's fought on the ship in the Rock of Gibraltar, who's fought um, in high profile events, who's got his father there ringside, whose father put out a beautiful message to him actually on Instagram
He did.
and on Twitter after the fight saying, listen, son, I love you. It's an absolute pleasure to see you do what you're doing. I'm always behind you. And I think, you know, I say it's a blessing and a curse having that name Hatton and having the father, the great Ricky Hitman Hatton.
I saw a tweet where somebody said, after 16 pro fights, they're now saying what we said after the first one. Small shows, off TV, away from big crowds, come back in 2 years. This was a scandalous cash grab. They went into this with their eyes open. Those involved don't know as much as people think. Yeah,
Mm.
bit brutal,
Well, it's
but
amazing. He's had 16 fights already. It's gone really quickly, hasn't it? He's been very busy. I don't think he's going to have more than I'd say probably 6 to 10 more, and it'll be over. I think he's going to be around for a couple more years, and that'll be it. Um, as I say, he has progressed. There's no question about it. It'd be interesting to see what what he learns under Ben Davison or what Ben Davison makes of him. Ben's a very clever trainer and will make the
I think
most of his skill set.
I think it's Barry that's training him.
Yeah, but Ben will have an input. Barry
Mm,
Smith, yeah.
yeah,
Ben will have an input as well. Ben's there in the gym. He's the head of the gym in Harlow. But it's going to be an interesting little period for him over the next 18 months.
a word on Jimmy Flint. A big win for him. Obviously, a guy that's kind
Yeah.
of done it in the small hold scene, and his trainer Jason Cunningham's having a lot of success recently. He had it as a fighter, beating, winning fights in the away corner, and he's now doing it as a.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a word on him.
Well, Jason Cunningham, as you say, superb man, great kind of underrated and undersung stalwart of British boxing. As you say, had successes when he wasn't meant to in many ways as the underdog and as the away fighter, not as the house fighter. And he's done that with Flint. And let's see what Flint does from here. He looked very strong on the night, and again made sure that he took his opportunities in these last two fights to make a name for himself. And now Flint's two victories over Hatton propel him on to greater things.
Indeed. Main event, we'll jump into the main event. Jack Catterall, Regis Prograis. One of the big talking points was the scorecards, as well as obviously Jack's performance. But I want to ask you, like, when I was sat ringside, a lot of people that was sat around after rounds 7, 8, they all had Regis winning, some really wide, some
Yeah.
just edging it. How did you guys have it?
Um, I had I've got my scorecard here. I was presenting live on Talk Sport at the time, and I came home and I watched the fight again because I wasn't fully focused on it because I had people in the studio with me and so on. Spencer Oliver and O'Hara Davis and Liam Davis was on the line as well. Weirdly, I mean not weirdly, but after 7 rounds, and the seventh was a 10-9 to Regis when Jack touched down. I had Regis 69-64, believe it or not. But then Jack was brilliant in the last five to a 10-7 in the ninth. I had scored the first to 10-10. I didn't think anything landed. Jack was brilliant, world class finish in the last 5 rounds. He was very accurate. His defense was brilliant. He picked his punches extraordinarily. His footwork is brilliant in and out. And I had him winning 114, 112.
That's really
Um,
close.
it was. I had them level at 10, but Jack was coming back all the time and dominating the last half of the fight. And there was no question then that it was his fight in the last 2 or 3 rounds. It was 2 or 3 rounds. It was a fight of two halves in many ways. But Jack's patience and his movement and his maturity really are world class. And I think his patience and accuracy are actually elite in many ways. Really looking forward to these matchups potentially against Liam Paro or Subriel Matias, Teofimo Lopez or Devin Haney, even though I think Devin Haney he probably won't get because I think Haney would probably be fighting Ryan Garcia next, Boxing King Media.
Hmm. Okay. What did you make of the cards then? Because the cards were completely opposite to what you had.
Yeah, 117, 108, 116, 109, 116, 109. I reckon there were a couple of close rounds in there. Rounds um, five, no, round five wasn't close. That was when Jack touched down. Round 6 and 7 were very close, and they could have gone to Jack. And in that case, my card would have gone to 116, 110 at that point, which aligns with 116, 109 on two of the judges' cards and 117, 108 on the other. That's very, very wide. But listen, I can see them going the way of Jack Catterall as well because his jabbing was very accurate. It was a low punch count fight in many ways. It was, in fact, it was a people contacted me and said, "Oh, why was it so boring for 6 rounds?" I said, "Because they were playing fistic chess, and they're both southpaws, and they both had clever movement, and they were both ducking, feinting, weaving, bobbing, and looking for a way in." I thought it was fascinating.
Yeah, they
I
were
watched the
in
fight
each
again, as
other's
I say,
power.
between What I did was, here's what I did. At 2 o'clock, it went back to 1 a.m. I
Yeah,
thought,
yeah.
right, I'm going to use the extra hour to rewatch the fight. Um, yeah. So we were saying about power.
Yeah, I thought they were respecting each other's power, that nobody
They
wanted to
were,
gamble.
they were, they were.
Yeah,
I
that's
think I understand why Regis has retired though, because I think that foot injury at the end, he looked a very tired fighter, taking nothing away from Jack towards the end. He looked like a very tired fighter, and he's come to the end, but he will be pleased that it wasn't a shutout in the same way that it was against Devin Haney. And I think that's all I would be wary of for Jack in a Devin Haney fight, which I hope comes. The hand speed of Haney might be an issue, and his movement that'll be a cagey affair as well. And the unusual movement of Tio Lopez. Both of them are going to be very, very close fights, but I imagine that Jack will end up fighting the winner of Matias and the champion Liam Paro at the moment.
okay. The last thing I want to speak to you about, Gareth, is a rumor that's come out this morning. Again, it's from Benson's tweeted. I think they've said there's ongoing small talk for a Canelo versus Chris Eubank Jr. fight. So I first got wind of this when I filmed Conor Benn and Derek Chisora having some two-way banter. And I thought Derek was joking, just to wind Conor up. And he said, well, he said Canelo's fighting Eubank. He may look like he was telling the truth.
Well, I know for a fact that there were talks about this in the past. A few months back, we heard rumors of it at the time. I'm just pulling up the middleweight rankings here for a moment because I can tell you now that there have been chats in the background about Erislandi Lara, Yanibek Alim Kanuli, obviously holds two of the belts, the IBF and the WBO. There are also talks ongoing with Eubank and Benn still. We're waiting for the resolution on Conor Benn, which I hear is imminent, with the Boxing Board of Control and UK anti-doping for a resolution on that going back 2 years with the clomiphene tests. Doesn't surprise me at all that Canelo and Eubank are being talked about. Eubank's a big name. He brought heat at the last event in Riyadh. Beterbiev Bivol Beterbiev. He stole lots of headlines, but it could be Conor Benn or it could be Sol Canelo Alvarez. What would you prefer to see? I think I'd like to see him in against Alvarez at super middleweight.
Yeah,
It'd be a great fight. It's a
obviously with
great fight.
obviously with the Connor thing, we still don't know what's happening, do we? I did ask Eddie and Frank Smith at the weekend, and I said you guys did say October was going to be the month. Uh,
Yeah,
it's running out. There's 4 days left, and we haven't heard nothing. But Frank Smith kind of suggested it might be this week.
yeah. Well, I was being suggested to me that it was last week, and I was waiting to speak to Connor. I'd set up an interview potentially with him,
Hmm.
but they wanted that to get over the line first of all. They don't know what the result and the causation is going to be from UK anti-doping. I don't think they've been had the hint yet on what the suspension might be retrospectively. Obviously, if it's 2 years, um, the suspension will be over and it'll be retrospective. If it's 4 years, he may have more time to wait out.
All right. So
Um,
do you think they're waiting for a because nobody really knows what's going on? So do you know that for a fact? Is that what's happening? They're waiting for UCAT to give a suspension out, or is it the boxing
yes,
board?
they're waiting for a resolution from Border Control and UCAD. I'm told it's imminent. I was hoping it would be last week because I wanted to go and see Connor and speak to him about it,
Mm-hmm.
if that was possible.
Mm.
And then talk about who he was going to fight next, because clearly we saw it in the ring in Riyadh and we saw it around the periphery of the event. Beterbiev Bivol that Conor Benn was brought out for a reason, which was to get into the face of Chris Eubank and sell that fight. So the likelihood I think, is that if Conor Benn has got a 2 year suspension, that it will be that fight that will be in 2025 and not the Canelo fight. I'm sure that's a fight that Eubank would favour over the Canelo fight right now.
If it's a 2 year ban, will the ban start from his last fight under the British Boxing Board or the one that he had in Florida?
Well, that's a very interesting question because that license was American. So I imagine they would issue that license and it would be under the Boxing Board of Control license, which was surrendered, if you recall, in October 2022. It was surrendered at the time. It was rescinded. Sorry, it wasn't rescinded by the board. It was taken to the board and given back. If you do you remember?
Yeah, I remember. Yep. So that'd be interesting.
So I imagine it'll go back to that. That's why this October date is significant.
Okay, good stuff. Um, Last question. I should have asked you this earlier when we was talking about Campbell Hatton. What do you think Matchroom should do with him then?
Just just don't match him against killers. Improve his boxing skills. Put him in against some boxers because he loves a tear up. But I'd like to see him in boxing matches. Like to see his skills improve. I think that's the key. It's interesting that you're very taken on the Campbell Hatton story this morning.
Yeah, because it's quite it was quite the one that did the most interaction on the weekend. So I thought it'd
Interesting.
be like a big
Well,
thing.
he's got that huge name. Ricky Hatton is arguably,
Actually created more talking space than the
yeah,
Jack Catterall win on our platform.
interesting, very interesting. Well, he carries an enormous name in the history of British boxing. Ricky is arguably the most popular. And certainly, he's had more traveling fans than anyone else I can ever remember.
Mm. Indeed, Gareth, appreciate your time as always. We shall catch up next week, and we'll speak then. Thank you.